Hey guys, Sav here, and today we're going to do, finally, the first episode of the new updated Fractals. New and updated Fractals, I should say. I don't actually have a name for the series yet, so when I come up with a name for it, it'll have a name. But anyway, this is Swampland. This is the new and improved, if you will, Swampland. I don't know necessarily if it's improved. I'll leave that up to each individual person to determine that for themselves. So I'm going to kind of go over how it was before, and then talk about how it is now. Basically, this Fractal got basically the biggest overhaul probably out of any of them. If you guys do remember, there used to be two separate paths, and depending on which scale you're, well, initially it was random back in the old days of the Fractals. But then when they went to the 100 Fractal level system, they made it so that depending on what scale you were doing would depend on which path you were doing. And the two paths were the Bloomhunger path and the Mossman path. The Mossman path was technically, I guess, supposed to be the harder path. And eventually, after a lot of fixes and patches, they were able to actually make it the more difficult path. Bloomhunger basically was stationary. You walked in and you just DPS them down. Whereas Mossman had some mechanics. He had some adds. He moved. You had to avoid some things. The problem is there was so many different ways that he was just, for lack of a better term, cheesed. You would stand on top of a roof. You would stand on a tree. You would stand under something. You would stand in a corner, and he couldn't hurt you, and you would just DPS him down. When the 100 scale Fractals were initially released, everybody just did the swamps, and the reason why is because they were so easy. Because there were so many cheeses for the Mossman, and Bloomhunger was just so easy. So you would do your scale, your T4, or actually I don't remember exactly how that even worked. You did 57, 50, I forget the exact number, 56, 67, 77, if I remember correctly, and that was like your best case scenario. You would have the best chance at loot by doing those, and you'd have them done the quickest. All well and good, except they were boring. So I think this was on the radar pretty immediately, this Fractal, for them to revamp, and they did. And now there is no longer two paths, there is only one path. I skipped in this video the Wisp phase because it's mainly unchanged. The only thing they've really done is just put markers on the map so that you can see who has the Wisps, and it made it more obvious who had the Wisps, I guess. I don't know if it was really unobvious before. And they also added some like little rifles that you could pick up and shoot at allies to make them either, you know, cleanse their conditions and heal them, or speed them up. They're not really oftenly used, but they are there for use. And where this video started is directly after the Wisp phase, when the section opens up and you run in. It used to be a swim spot where you would swim underwater, and it was kind of pointless because the only thing that was really there were a couple skelks, and you just ran past them, or swam past them, and they didn't actually even do anything. And that's where you actually chose which path you would go. You either go to Bloomhunger, or you would go to Mossman. Now you actually walk through the path. There's very shallow water there, and Mossman spawns here every time regardless. And you have a very quick and relatively painless fight with Mossman. Mossman he has all the same mechanics that he had before. However, his health and toughness are scaled much lower than they used to, so the fight doesn't last very long. He can still one-shot you like he could before. He still disappears like he did before. But overall, it's a much quicker and simpler fight. The only problem I have with that fight is the confined area that it's in, and sometimes the camera angles are a little silly in that fight. Overall, though, it's definitely an improvement. It definitely does not take that long. After that, you go into what is now on your screen is the fight with the Bloomhunger. This is where the Fractal really became difficult. They completely changed Bloomhunger. He's no longer stationary, and he moves quite a bit. It's in the same arena that the Bloomhunger was in before, except they added Wisps to this arena. So now to start, you have to grab a Wisp and take it to the Wisp, I don't know, tree stump or whatever it is, to start the fight. Around the center are 4 of these stumps, 4 Wisps that will come into play later. Actually, no, I'm sorry. They come into play throughout the fight because they actually are what becomes like the location where you can actually fight Gloomhunger. Think of it like the Path 2 of Ascalon Catacombs, where you had to set the traps for the whatever the bad guy was there. He would be, you know, you wouldn't be able to hurt him unless he hit the trap. When he hit the trap, then you could DPS him down. And it's kind of the same idea here. These wisp locations will light up a circular area around it, and once Gloomhunger steps into it, now you can hurt Gloomhunger. When he steps out of it, you can still DPS him for a short time, but it will wear off, and you will get and you will no longer be able to hurt him. He will go into like a ghostly figure, kind of letting you know that hey, you can't hurt him anymore. So this goes on for the first 25%. So there's what, 4 phases, I guess. Yeah, 4 phases. So that's the first phase. Nothing really to it. Gloomhunger runs around. He'll jump. He does a lot of it. Break bar attacks where you can break his break bar and DPS him down. But really, the first 25% of the fight's really not that big of a deal. He has like kind of like a shake, kind of like Slothazor, where he will shake and all this green stuff will come off of him and it hurts you, it poisons you, it puts random conditions on you depending on the scale of the Fractal. And he has like a stomping also, where it puts like a spiral area of effect around him as he's stomping, and if you're in that area of effect, you'll take damage. It hurts a lot. He also does like a lunging attack. All these attacks will be throughout the fight, but this is really the only mechanics that he has in the beginning. He does this lunging attack where he can basically be on the other side of the room and he will just jump and land on the location of the AoE circle. And then he charges. He runs around, and if you're in the area where he's charging, he'll knock you back and do some damage to you. That's the first 25%. That's all the mechanics. Again, those mechanics will persist throughout the battle. The second phase of the attack, he'll now spawn a champion. I forget what it's called, but it's basically a champion mini Gloomhunger, if you will, which is a lot slower. It doesn't have all the same attacks. Oakheart, I'm sorry. It's called a champion Oakheart. It doesn't have quite the same attacks. It's a lot slower. It does like a ground pound attack. It does some other DPS attack, or not DPS attacks, but it does some other attacks. Nothing really too much to worry about. The main thing with this thing is it's kind of a health sponge. It does have quite a big health pool, so it does take you some time to take it down. You don't technically per se have to kill it. You can actually ignore it if you would like. However, he can be a pain in the ass if ignored. He does have a one-shot knockdown attack. It's an AoE circle where he's standing. If you're stuck in the AoE circle, he'll knock you down and he will one-shot you more or less, or at least take most of your health out. That's actually the attack right there that was just on the screen. So most groups will focus him down and then go back to Gloomhunger. There is some strategies with Necros and Epis, but I don't feel like it does enough damage to him. I think you should focus on him and kill the champion Oakheart before you go back to fighting Gloomhunger. I do realize I completely missed talking about the spirit phase. We will get to that. So anyway, after you kill the champion Oakheart, then basically you're just back to you beat Gloomhunger and you take Gloomhunger down to 50%. I did miss it, so I will talk about it now. The spirit phase happens at 75% and 50%. Once you phase Gloomhunger, he will go into the middle of the arena, and you will have to survive, quote unquote, air quotes here, survive the spirit onslaught. And what will happen is a bunch of spirits of dead animals, I guess, will spawn. And just like Gloomhunger, when they run into this wisp area circle, they will become attackable, I guess, for lack of a better word. So you have to continue to go around the room in a circle like you have been for Gloomhunger, and basically kill off as many of these animals as you can. There's a bar that you have to fill up. You'll at the top right corner. Once you fill that bar up, the spirit phase is over, and you will go on to the next phase. So anyway, so that's the spirit phase. Again, it happens between 75% of Gloomhunger's health and 50% of Gloomhunger's health. Again, the champion will come after the first spirit phase, the champion Oakheart, and then he'll also come after the second spirit phase. The only thing that they kind of add, which as I'm watching this video, I think it actually might even be I'm not 100% sure when this phase actually kicks in, but Bloomhunger will also get a big AoE one-shot attack at some point. I thought it was between 50 and 25. It may be sooner. I'm not 100% sure. But he basically gets this big one-shot attack that if you're in this AoE circle, you are going to go down. So you need to get the hell out of there. I don't think there's a break bar for it. So if you see this attack, you need to get the heck out of the AoE circle. At 25% of Bloomhunger's health will be the new Wisp phase, and what I was alluding to earlier, you have to go to these 4 Wisp stumps that you've been, or clefts I think they're called. You will now have to go and grab a Wisp from the outer edges of the arena and bring it to those inner Wisp clefts. The 4 people have to do it. You have to get 4 Wisps into each one of these 4 corners in order to progress the fight. If you do not, Bloomhunger does basically like a World Eater, like Gorstable does, and wipes everybody in the room. It's a huge attack. It's completely unavoidable, and you will go down, and you don't die per se. You can go into down state, but he will then just wind up for the attack again. So it is a party wiper. So you have, I believe, on the higher tiers, you only have 20 seconds to do this. So once you survive the 25% party wiper, which I'll get to why I really don't like that later, and you get all 4 Wisps into their clefts, you're into the final phase where Bloomhunger and the spirits are attacking you all at the same time. So basically the middle of the floor lights up like each one of the clefts did before, and you just fight Bloomhunger in the middle of the arena. And while you're fighting Bloomhunger, all the spirits from the spirit phases before are also rushing in, so you have a lot of adds during this part of the fight. Bloomhunger has all the same attacks that he had before. The one difference is there is no champion O-Cart like there was in the previous 2 phases. This phase tends to go pretty quick. You kind of just DPS Bloomhunger down from here. You don't worry too much about the spirits. Again, you don't have to worry about the O-Cart, and it ends relatively quickly. It might even be the easiest of the phases. Maybe the first phase is the easiest. But anyway, and that's the Bloomhunger fight. So just a couple tips and tricks for people who are going into it for their first time. The video that I showed you, I was doing it in scale 77. I don't recommend scale 77. I would probably recommend scale 89, I believe it is. Only because 77 has random conditions in it. The random conditions can be a pain in the ass. I don't like the random condition instability. I think it's kind of stupid. A lot of times, what'll happen to me, especially if I'm not playing on my Necro, and the reason why I switched back to my Necro after switching off of my Necro is confusion is a killer. And it is one of the random conditions, and you might find yourself with 5 to 10 stacks of confusion stacked on you randomly, and you will literally just nuke yourself by auto-attacking in a matter of seconds. So I'm not a big fan of the random conditions, but it is, at least in scale 77, it is there. I don't remember what exactly are the instabilities in 89 versus 77, but I can tell you in 77, you also saw one of the new ones called mist conversions, where stuff like just randomly spawn. You'll see, you probably saw a couple times a Jade Maul tentacle pop up out of the ground. You might have saw Mossman or the bunny from uncategorized Fractal spawn. This is all intentional. You might even see a Skyhammer AoE pop up, and you'll hear the guy say, Skyhammer calibrated to red team, and then, a big Skyhammer AoE circle spawns on the floor. You can get the heck out of it before you get blasted. The third instability for 77 is Adrenaline Rush. Yeah, I can say that. Adrenaline Rush. Enemies becoming rage for a time when low on health. I never really noticed the effect of this. I don't know if it's really a great instability or not. Because I've actually just never even really noticed the effect of it before. Again, the random conditions is really what you're going to notice the most, and why I don't suggest you do Fractal 77 and you try instead 89. or lower levels if you're still working your way up. Obviously, you can do lower levels when you're working your way up. But if you're doing the T4 fractals every day, I suggest 89, just because, especially if you're not on a Necro. A Necro does make the fight a little bit easier because of if you're running a certain build, if you're running the old Minionmancer build or whatever it's called, the Jagged Horror build, and you're running Rise, you can obviously use your minions to suck up the conditions for you, so you don't actually take a whole lot of conditions on your own. You can also run the traded Plague Signet. I forget which line that's in, which will, if you get 3 conditions on you, it automatically transfers over to the enemy. So Necromancer is obviously an easy take for me in this battle. I will get into a later video why I think Necromancer is not dead and why I think they're still superior in Fractals, but that's for another video for another day. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry I ran out of footage. I deleted my old, I had an 89 recorded and I deleted it. I would have just put it in here at the end for something else to watch while I was talking, but unfortunately that video is long gone. Overall, I like the changes and I don't like the changes. I used to, if you're lazy and you just want to get in and get your fractals done, and you used to look forward to Swampland because it was easy. It was, you just went in and did it real quick and went on with your life. Now it's a bit more of a pain in the ass. You still get some parties who don't know what they're doing, and you wipe at the 25%. Some parties, to try to avoid that 25% wipe, will have you put your own personal waypoints on the map. I don't personally like that. I don't do it myself, and the reason why I don't is because I don't want to be blamed if I go down or something like that. I don't want people to just kick me out of the party. So it's a double-edged sword, I think, with the personal waypoint system. It just gives you somebody to blame when shit goes wrong. But at the same time, it also, mentally that wisp is going to be taken care of. So some people, a lot of groups want you to do it. I personally am not a big fan of it, so I don't do it. I usually just play the backup role. The 5th person who will just go get whatever wisp isn't being taken care of if one of them happens to not be taken care of. I've also been in parties where they didn't require you to do the personal waypoint, and it worked out just fine. So if you know what you're doing, you go in and you do it, everything will be fine. There is going to be a learning curve with the fight. It's definitely a lot more difficult than it used to be, and I think that was the goal. I don't know if I necessarily like it. I kind of liked Easy Street before, with just going in and getting it over with and getting on with your life, but, it is what it is. So, anyway, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something today, and I will see you next time with my next Fractal video. Probably Snowblind, because I have some of that recorded already. And then eventually, hopefully, Chaos, and then the first reworked Fractal, which was Cliffside. I'll see you guys next time.